Hey there, this is Mike Durr, Kingwood Mortgage Guy, and I'm fortunate to be here with Joe Salas, real estate guru, also with Purple Paint Inspections, Byrd Properties International.
That's
And
it.
Joe, good to see you, brother. What's
Hey,
going
it's good to be here, Mike. I appreciate it. Not much. I mean, a lot, but really today's kind of been a mellow day. It's Tuesdays and Thursdays are usually my training days. So I've had a couple classes earlier today. Been tying up some loose ends. I got a few deals in contract.
on? Nice.
It's a good day today. Can't complain.
Good, excellent. So there's a lot of stuff going on news-wise, and some kind of interesting things that are happening for anybody that's out there that's thinking about buying or selling. There's some trends that are starting to form. Now, we don't know what they're going to do, but there's a lot of information and the basis of it. We're going to cover kind of the general premise of it, a few antidotes, as you will. And let's get into the program, add to the stream. And I love that picture. Joe is always, oh my gosh, what's going on?
Hey, that's the look when you're going to talk about rates today. I'm going to be like,
Yeah, that's right. So here's what we're going to cover. If you wanted to stick around with us today, we're going to do a little humor thing, and I'm a little nervous about the one that I've got today, but we'll see how it goes. Obviously, I'm going to continue making an announcement about the first-time homebuyer webinar that I'm going to do on the 26th. Joe's welcome to come. We're going to talk a little bit about grants, heroes, first-time homebuyers, public servants. I've got a credit thing today that I wanted to share with you. I'm not sure that this is going to be a surprise to anybody, but I think I find it was a surprise to the couple that I'm going to show you. Foreclosures are back in the news today. This is something that is starting to happen based on the government taking their hand off and letting foreclosures actually happen now. Forecast for appreciation, definitely slowing, no doubt about that. I'm going to talk about rates for 15, 20, 30, and ARMs. If you know what, I'm not talking about these, I'm talking about adjustable rate mortgages. Then there's an article about buyers balking, particularly with home builders. And so anyway, that's what I'm going to be talking about. Do you see anything else you want to talk about today, Joe?
that's it, man. I'm easy like Sunday morning today.
Okay, good deal. All right, well, let's just get on through and get to the fun stuff. So these are not my dogs, but they could be. We're glad you're home. The Russians took up in the hallway. It seems like those poor Russians, they get blamed for everything. So, okay, I apologize for that. For you, those of you that are offended, and for those that are thinking that's kind of funny, I think it is too. So, enough of that. All right. So, what every first-time homebuyer should know, if there was ever a time, if you're just going into the home buying mode, this is one of those times when you need to talk to somebody that knows what the heck's going on. And Joe and I want to answer those questions. Joe, the reason that I'm so glad that Joe chooses to kind of be a part of this is he's not only a realtor, but he's a home inspector. And let me tell you, one of the biggest things that you can get in trouble with on a house is to buy one that's not quite ready to be bought. And Joe, just give them a brief indication of the things that you look at when you're doing home inspections.
Yeah, actually, it's a pretty thorough inspection of the property and the condition of the property. We're looking at structural systems, including foundations, walls, windows, doors, floors. On the inside of the house, we're doing ceilings, walls, floors, doors, roof structure, roof covering, attic, electrical systems, plumbing systems, HVAC systems, appliances. It is a fairly thorough inspection of the property, and the job of an inspector is to report the general condition of the property. So that's our job, is we find problems based on our standards of practice, and we report that to the buyers.
So that standards of practice are guidelines that they have for what's good for the consumer. And if you think about buying a house without an inspector, I mean, I'm sorry, you're kind of scheduling yourself for a disaster. And somebody like Joe, or Joe in particular, is one of those good guys that's going to help you out. Not only does he do the inspections, but he's also a great realtor and would be a person that I would want on my team when I'm buying a house. So,
I appreciate that, Mike.
well,
Thank you.
I'm serious about it. So anyway, just keep that in mind for first-time home buyers. I mean, it's scary enough to be buying a home right now anyway, because a lot of people are worried that there's a housing crash or a bubble that's going to pop or something to that effect. But from what we can tell, from what all the articles are talking about now, shoot, uh, everything could bust tomorrow when everybody that thought anything or wrote anything would be wrong, and that could happen. We just don't see it that way, though. From what I'm looking at, there's just not enough houses out there for the number of people that are looking to buy. So, on the first-time home buyer, we're going to talk about the 3 key factors: the magic credit score that makes it easier to own a home, how to raise your credit scores on your own without expensive credit repair, the difference between closing costs and down payment, the difference between what you qualify for and what you can afford. There is a difference there. And how almost anyone can get a credit or grant based on the size of the house or the house you buy. In this case, probably the maximum grant is around $14,723. You can do that for a down payment. Now, that doesn't mean that there necessarily not going to be other costs. So you need to have a little bit of money when you're coming to closing in most cases. Not always, but in most cases. We're going to do that it's not going to be at a place. It's going to be at your place. It's going to be a Zoom type of arrangement where you'll get to participate and ask questions and all that kind of stuff. And we're looking forward to it. And again, that's going to be on July 26th. So just if you're interested in that, you have to reach out to us. There should be contact information with my email or my phone number on there.
What time is that at, Mike?
We're going to start it. I think it said, well, let me go back. I think it said, did I say? It's going to be like 6:30, something like that. 6 or 6:30 and that is a Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to look. Anyway, so I think that's going to be a good thing. Okay. The name of the show is Better Credit, Better Home. And on this credit report, when you first look at it, you go, wow, 774, 800, 787. Those are pretty rocking good scores. And then you look down and you see the spouse is 731, 713, and 718. What do you think the mortgage lenders use? What scores do they use?
The lower of the two, no?
They do. They use the lower of the two. There's a demarcation line on credit scores when you're using credit, and there's tiers as you're looking at the scale. 740 is an important demarcation line. If you're over 740, there's generally not any negative hits that go towards your credit score. And when I say a negative credit score or anything or hits, are deductions that they take from the interest rate. So an example is at 740, you get the best interest rates. That's the bottom line. If you're at 739, you're 1 point away from getting the best interest rates. And the hit on the 739 to 720 is not very hard, but it's a little bit of a hit. You're going to get a little bit less of a credit score. At 719 is another layer below. So you always want to be at 720, or you want to be at 740, or you want to be at 700. And when you go below 700, there's a pretty big hit. And in this case, there's kind of an interesting thing down here. It shows potential score improvement, if you can see that. And it shows 37 points on the Experian credit report, 28 points on the TransUnion. The reason I wanted to show this one is 28 points will get you to 740. That'd be 741, actually. And so you would want to find out what she or this spouse has to do to get her credit score up to the 740 so that they don't take a hit, because she's not only below 740, she's below 720. Her middle score is 718. So that would be 2 hits to her, and in this case, or yeah, because the co-applicant, I should say, I don't know if it's a her or him, the co-applicant. Now I'm going to show you what kind of stuff shows up on the next slide that caused that. I mean, their credit is perfect throughout until you get to the derogatories. And on the credit report, this one's about 15 pages long. They have a lot of credit. All of it's paid perfectly, immaculately, but the co-borrower and this C on this side, if it said B, it would be the borrower. If it said C, it would be the co-borrower. It shows back in June of this year, so last month, they have a 30-day late. And look at the look at the balance on there. Can you see that, Joe?
What was it? $2?
$2. So that's a perfect example of somebody that has maybe a credit card that they paid off, and over the course of 30 days, maybe they didn't account for the interest that was on the credit card, and then they thought that they paid it off. So the next month they just didn't even, when they got the bill in, they didn't even look at it because they knew they paid it off. And it cost her about 40 points.
Gosh.
That is brutal, and it shows 130-day late. Now, this turns out that it reported to 2 bureaus. This is Experian and TransUnion. This is Equifax. So these are duplicates. This is the same account. It's just it looks like it's Victoria's Secrets, and nothing worse than having a deal like this to mess you up. And I guarantee you that this co-borrower believes they have perfect credit. They probably had 780 scores last week until this happened. So anyway, that's one of those things you just have to pay attention to this stuff. And I mean, it makes a difference. And I don't know what the difference is, but when rates are this high, you don't want it to be any higher than it has to be. All right. So gosh, did I go from that to that? Wait a minute. Let me see. I guess I did. All right. So market sale, I usually do this towards the end, but this is kind of a general summary. I hope there's some slides behind here. Maybe not. Maybe I messed the whole thing up. Signs housing market is cooling. We're definitely seeing those. Buyers, let me tell you what they're doing. Buyers are being more discerning. And one of the articles that I have right here is this is kind of an interesting one. Let's see. It's over here. As buyers balk, some home builders dread the months to come. And this has got an article about people that have gone under contract on new builds, and they're being built. And during the course of time, the people, as interest rates have gone up, they've had second thoughts about whether they're going to buy this new build. And a lot of people are buying new builds because they didn't fathom winning an existing home. And so they kind of compromised on a new build. Not all the new builds are what you want in some cases. So now they have the opportunity to buy. They may leave money on the table, but they're walking away from these things. So that's kind of interesting. Cost of buying is stabilizing. I think that this has the initial inklings, if inklings is a thing, is inkling a thing? Inklings of that the market might be stabilizing a little bit or being a little more consistent with what we used to expect. What do you think, Joe?
I think the supply chain is catching up. I think also the availability of houses. Case in point, I listed a house over off of Aldine Westfield and Cypress Wood. When I went to do the listing presentation, between the time of the listing presentation and the time that we went live, it was like 15 days. In that amount of time, 5 extra homes hit that market in that neighborhood. So I'm right? Competing against 10 houses instead of just 5. Yes.
Wow. Crazy. So that boils down to less competition for homes, which that means that when you go to make an offer, you're not having to get in line to make the offer. And, it may be 3 offers instead of 15 these days. The sellers, I think one of the articles I read said 1 in 7 homes are taking discounts on their asking price. Now, that doesn't mean there's 6 out of 7 that aren't, but that's still better than what it was. I mean, most homes were going over asking price for a long time. Interest rates, the only thing I can tell you about interest rates right now, and I've got something here that talks about what they are today. I put uh, one of the.
I heard the story that there's going to be the largest interest rate hike that we've seen in a while. Is that what have you heard on that?
Well, today was not a good day for interest rates. I mean, they started out okay, and I actually got a loan lock today before anything happened. But there were some negative things that happened, and they're not really seeing where this is coming from. So the hand that's moving the interest rate market right now, it used to be the government buying mortgage-backed securities. It could be people opening up new bond offerings, but there's something else going on, and I've seen a stabilization, but boy, tomorrow it may change. I mean, it's just one of those deals. So if you're out there in the market and anybody is telling you to float, I would run like the Dickens. I mean, I don't think it's time to float. It's time to lock. Okay. So as a seller, what does this mean to you? Well, sellers are less likely to go on the market. We talked about that. Why should they sell when they're going to pay higher interest rate on something new? Now, I will share with you. I probably shouldn't say anything about that because I may jinx the whole deal. So I'm going to stay off on that. But I'm looking at something right now. Why trade low rate for higher rate? Well, because it's your dream home, so you might do it. I mean, I'm definitely thinking about that. Be okay with fewer offers if you're a seller. It's not. I mean, just because there are fewer offers doesn't mean there's going to be less high offers. There's still people paying over asking price. The loan that we got in this week was listed, I think, at 749, and the contract that we're working on is 780 for that 749 property. So it was still $30,000 over.
Yeah. How are we seeing appraisals come in versus those offer prices?
Well, I did get an appraisal in today. It was a 599 sale, and it came in at 610. So on an anecdotal basis, they seem to be coming in okay.
That's good.
There are others that I'm a little worried about, but it's just sometimes people are stretching it. So we'll see. Cash offers are still awesome, but you got to make sure they have the cash. And you got to, one of the things when somebody says they're going to offer cash, a lot of people don't think about verifying that they've got that cash. And one of the closings that I'm supposed to have this week is they sold their home and it closed, but the cash hadn't shown up yet. And they closed on Friday and it's Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
That's a little unusual. So you want to make sure that the cash shows up. And so you want to verify that. And a lot of people don't think that they have to verify cash. Realtors know that you do.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing that I think is a calming effect for everybody that might hear this is that stay patient. Market is correcting. There's no reason to get excited. They're going to be selling homes tomorrow. They sold homes yesterday. And in the next year or 2 years, they're going to be selling homes. So they're not going away. And they're generally a pretty good investment. That's at least that's the way in my lifetime it's been. Rates are moving up. I mean, that's what we just talked about. So we're going to, I think I put together, I swear, I get all this stuff together and then I can't find it. It's not that much. Oh, here it is, right here. So interest rates today, or is this where I'm going to do this? Let's see. Let me go back here. All right, interest rates today, I looked at 15-year rates, 20-year rates, and 30-year rates. And if you called me today and wanted to lock in these rates, I can lock them today. Okay, these are rates that are good for 30 days. And just a heads up, when you ask somebody like a mortgage guy like myself for rates, you also want to ask them for how long is that locked for. There's some game that some guys play that they'll give you a 10-day rate or a 15-day rate. Well, generally, you can't close in 10 or 15 days. So it might not be the right rate. Ask for at least a 30-day rate, which is a reasonable amount of time to get a deal closed on. 15-year mortgages, actually, there are people doing 15-year mortgages. That rate today from us is 4.65. I think the market's about 4.875. On a 20-year, and 20-year is kind of a good alternative to a 15 if the payment's too high, is 5.25. which is not too bad for a 20-year. The market's got 5.50 from what I can see. And then our 30-year rate today was 5.5, and that's been pretty consistent between 5 3/8 and 5.5, whereas the market in general, national market, is 5.75. So I thought that was good news. So if anybody's interested in rate or would hearing this in the time frame that it's being projected, then we'd love to hear from you on that. Also doing lock and shop. Now, lock and shop's an interesting way to go because it's a 90-day lock. And the reason this program was brought about is because, well, people were out there going and putting bids in for houses, and they couldn't win one. And while they're shopping for a house, the rates were going from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, and they were it was diminishing not only their, their stress level was going up because rates were going up, and they couldn't find a house that they could win. So there was one of the companies we like a lot started this, and then they backed off because there were too many people that were jacking with them, but they're back. They're doing it again. It's a good program. And a lot of people really are thankful this program came around. And man, seems like, what did I do here? I guess I killed it. I killed some other stuff. All right. Joe, any comments about any of that stuff? And I'll look at a couple of my articles here.
I was reading something today, and it was talking about, and I don't do many of them, so I'm not well versed in the fact of like an adjustable rate. How does it adjust monthly, or does it adjust yearly? What is the most common approach to an adjustable mortgage, and what are the pluses and minuses of it?
Okay, so the deal with the adjustable rate, these are for people that know they're either going to be moving, generally is a transitory type thing. And the adjustable rates are usually 3-year, 5-year, 7-year, 10-year. Those are the main bulk of them. And what you're doing is you're locking in a rate for 3 years or 5 years or 7 years, and then it's going to start adjusting based on an index. And an index might be something it used to be the LIBOR was an index, which was a European prime rate thing. I honestly have not done more than 2 ARMs in 15 years. There hadn't been a reason to do them. Rates have been so low. But they can be a little bit less expensive for somebody that knows they're going to move. So why would you buy a 30-year rate when the 3-year rate's going to be lower and you know that you're going to be transferred in 3 years? That's the premise.
But if they don't get transferred, what happens?
What happens is the mortgage continues on, but it does adjust, and it usually adjusts once a year. It could be once every 6 months after that. Okay. And I'll give you an example when it happened. When Sandy and I first bought our second house, we had this was back in '84, I think. We had a 12.9% adjustable rate. And of course, the interest rates at that time the fixed rates were 18%. Well, the good news is rates declined from that point. And so we never paid more than that 12.9 we lived in that house for about 6 years. I think it was a 3-year fixed, and the rate diminished to 9.9. And so that was a good thing. There are some people though that when the subprime market was out there, those were ugly adjustments because they didn't adjust down. They only adjusted up.
Yeah.
And really what you do is you refinance out of them. That's really what the standard is.
And I guess the premise of the conversation that, I was on one of these forums was that there may be an uptick in foreclosures because one, the government's now allowing them, but two, as we have people that are coming up to the limit or that time period where they had something locked in for 3 or 5 years and now interest rates are higher than what they were when they locked it in, that could be something that's challenging and then forcing them pretty much out of their home because they can't.
I'm kind of doubting that it's ARMs that are the problem, but I've got this survey, and I'll give you an example. It goes from 2008 And 2008, 9, and 10, there were probably 5 million foreclosures. In the last 3 years, in 2021 and 22, looks like there are less than 500,000. So from 5 million to 500,000. But
Goodness.
in 2021, of course, in 2020 and 21, the government put their hand on them and said you couldn't do them. And so far this year, there's been 164,581 foreclosures, and that's nationwide. So there's just not very many. I had another article here that said that in Texas, which Texas happens to be the fourth best, most stable market in the United States. The others above it, I don't know why Utah's there. Utah's number one, Washington's number two, Florida's number three, but Texas is number four. And there was a chance of foreclosure of, I think it was like 2.5%. Let's see, where is that? I like that one. Here it is. Underwater mortgages, 2.5% of the mortgages in Texas are underwater, pretty low. Economy rankings number 8. Home price appreciation, I guess this is for 2022. It says 19.3%.
Wow.
Is that crazy or what?
Yeah. Well, if you would have talked to the Montgomery County Appraisal District, my dad just had to go into the actual offices. They tried to raise his property value by 100%.
Ooh, yeah.
He had to go challenge it in front of the council or whatever there is over there.
Yeah, I've done that. I encourage everybody to do that. I mean, if you haven't ever done it, you got to do it just one time just to go through it. But I actually now I pay somebody to do mine for me just because it's a hassle when you're spending a day out of the office and stuff. But it's absolutely a good thing to do, and I just make it a standard practice.
And follow your homestead.
Oh yeah,
that's why I asked him. I was like, Dad, you don't have homestead? And he's like, no, I just never. And I was like, oh, you're selling your house anyway. Let's just let it.
So I have a list of kind of around the web things. It says Americans are changing jobs less frequently, and it's hurting wage growth in the U.S. So I don't know why that is, but it's good. I guess people are changing jobs. You know, I'm looking at the number of jobs that are open. There's still a ton of jobs open here. I see everywhere I look, I see people looking for people to work. Let's see, single family home starts fall to a 2-year low, but multifamily are going through the roof. So
I see it. I believe it. Yep.
They're accommodating the masses. They're just not taking care of the individuals.
Well, I think people are being wage growth versus appreciative value on homes is not equaling. It's not matching. So there's a lot of people that are being with the appreciative value of homes. In my opinion, they're being priced out of that ability to purchase a home.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's also that they're scared. When you're scared and you're not sure of something, you don't do anything. Yeah. And I think that's what's out there. And hopefully this would be a good news from them. And I will tell you that I am right now considering buying a new home as my primary residence, even though there's a housing bubble, so to speak. I don't believe it. And that the interest rates are higher. The home that I've got a 2.5% interest rate on a 30-year mortgage. And still thinking that it's a good thing for us to move.
Yeah, my wife and I are actually thinking the same thing. The thing that's keeping us from pulling the trigger on it is my son's in high school. He has a couple years left. So once he gets out of high school, my daughter is at an age where, it won't disrupt too many extracurriculars or things that they got going on in school. So probably about a year and a half, 2 years, we'll be.
Well, I think that's a testament to we don't just talk about it. We are in the process of doing it, and we're thinking about it. Just like you are, if you're out there as a first-time home buyer or even a second-time home buyer or a third-time home buyer, we'd love to talk to you. Joe, if you just give me your phone number so that they'd be able to reach you.
Yeah, definitely. Joe Salas, 346-224-4224. Give me a call if you have any inspection needs or questions or any questions about real estate sales. I'll help you out.
And I'm Mike Durr, Kingwood Mortgage Guy. And, what we try to do is we try to treat you like family. Try to be very transparent. We try to serve everybody's needs and help them make good decisions in times that are a little bit on the crazy side. But we sure appreciate you being with us this time, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. And Joe, God bless you, brother. I look forward to seeing you next week or maybe sooner. Okay.
Yeah. Count me in on that 6:30 next week, man. I'll be there.
Excellent. Talk to you later.
Bye.
All right. Bye, guys.